Is this my good saddle?
I never, you better wonder. I
Oh, shit.
And it was just like, the first grade, and I was just like, 27. Can't think of the name. So that's from my friend who takes lessons.
Okay, we are live. You may begin whenever you wish.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'd like to call the meeting to order. This is the Prospect Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee meeting for June. And the first order of business is to approve the minutes of the May meeting, which I sent out in advance. And I don't know if anyone has any corrections or additions to make. Okay, there's been a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Next, I'd like to invite Mayor Evans to give us any kind of update that he wishes to do.
As it relates to the parks, really don't have any big news for anybody. Want to go beyond Parks Matters?
Whatever you would like to,
Well, there is
Tell us
one,
about.
there is one big deal right now, and that is due to Laura's resignation, which I assume you've all heard about. We have been interviewing candidates. We ran an ad in the Kentucky League of Cities, and at first we received 2 applications. One of them was from city clerk of Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. The problem there, he's a very qualified gentleman, but the problem there was that Pigeon Forge has an annual budget of $60 million. And we couldn't afford the guy. And I talked to him on the phone. I tried to talk him down. And the best I could do was he said he talked to his wife. And after he talked to his wife, he hadn't moved. So the other one was very interesting, was from a lady in Hudson, Colorado. It's the so-called town clerk of that community of 2,500. And I talked to her once. And I asked her if she'd ever been to Kentucky, and her answer was intriguing. She said, yes, she came here to hunt wild turkeys. She was going to be gone the following week, and I communicated or attempted to the following week, and she never responded to either a phone call or email, so that washed out. And then nothing happened for several weeks, and the time is going by. Laura's leaving on June the 30th. And then we got about 6, all like that. And I was able, just looking at them, to call, the ones that we might be interested in. We end up interviewing 2 individuals. And we've gone down that road now for a week and a half. And we're going to have a special meeting of the council. The ordinance provides that I nominate a candidate, and this is a position is for chief administrative officer and city clerk combined. And I make that nomination to the council, and then the council either approves or disapproves. So we're going to have that proceeding tomorrow afternoon at 4:00. And so that's what I've been devoting some time to, in addition to the routine things like this long letter that's full of technical stuff. If you'd like to read it and tell me what it says, that would be fine. But other than that, things are chugging along pretty well.
thank you. So the next item on the agenda is update on parks. And we had some money remaining in our budget. So we approved a proposal by ICF to add some days to the invasive plant removal in Harris Creek Park. And we had enough money to add 4 days. 2 weeks ago, they worked 2 days. And they did not work last week. The people doing the work were actually in Wyoming last week, doing a plant survey. And I'm really glad they were in Wyoming because it rained every day here. So the intention is that they will do the remaining 2 days this week. And I haven't talked to Kateri, who's the project manager today, but she's usually very good at letting me know exactly when they're on the property, and I usually try to go out and touch base with them and see. So they've been working along the Orange Trail, well, sort of between the Orange Trail and the Blue Trail, doing more honeysuckle removal. And the last time I saw them, they were going to start cutting winter creeper vines there's some pretty big vines down along the Orange Trail. The Orange Trail Stabilization Project got started a couple of weeks ago, but only barely started because of the rain that moved back in. I had an email conversation with Grayson Shiprick of Earthbound Landscaping, and he expects to complete the project this week. And now that Ron's back, I'm sure Ron will be working with him to make sure it's done appropriately. And the final thing that I have on the parks update is I sent to the committee members the Putney Pond study report. And I trust you've all had a chance to take a look at that. And I thought that maybe we should discuss that a little bit and get some feedback on what you saw in the report and some thoughts about what we do moving forward. So is there anyone that would like to speak? And make sure you speak in your microphone.
Yeah, Linda, I'm assuming that option 3, the most expensive one, is off the table. Is that, I mean,
I think that's option 4. right?
Yeah,
oh, well, whatever, the last one, anyway.
it has a pretty big price tag.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So really, the ones we're considering would be the first 3 then. 3.
Yeah, the first one was just to do the base, what they call baseline invasive plant removal around the pond and put up some educational signage. And then the second one was to drop some logs strategically around the pond to create additional habitat and what they called scour ponds or something like that. And then the third one was to, well, actually,
The second one included the notch.
it included the notch in the dam. Yeah, I've
Oh,
got it on my
sorry.
tablet too, but I am worried about interference since there's that little sign. that says it right
Yeah,
there.
clearly.
And then there was another one to create again, notch the dam, but create a constructed streamway. So in each one of these is a little more expensive than the one before.
How much little?
How much little?
Do you have the figures?
Oh, yes. I pull it up, my tablet here. So the baseline, what they call the baseline to do the invasive plant removal, they said would be $5,500 to $12,000 in year 1. And sign installment would be somewhere between $500 and $3,000. Going, as we do more and more, it just adds to that number.
I think you ought to tell people how much it adds.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'm trying to get to
No,
that.
I'm not jumping on you here. I just,
I was gonna say, what,
when I looked at the dollar figures, let's just say I was impressed.
Yes. So the, what they call low cost would be $10,000 to $20,000, and that's angling logs, strategically placing logs. So that $10,000 to $20,000, as I understand it, would be in addition to the invasive plant removal.
That's what I understand. So what would the total for that be, invasive plant and logs?
Again, we'd have to, the range would be 15,500 to, what was it, $32,000.
And that's the cheapest of their recommendations.
Right. I mean, if we do nothing else, their recommendation is that we at least begin the invasive plant removal.
Right.
And then I did call Lee Droppelman, who's the lead person on this, and said, well, if we started with the invasive plant removal, would that preclude us from doing additional things in the future? If funding is available? And he said, absolutely, these can be additive. So we can take sort of a staged approach.
So, do they give you any idea? If you do it phased, are we in a position where it can end up on go back to it's not swamp,
It'd be wetland,
wetlands?
and there will always be some water moving through it. Yes.
I understand that, but does it get to the point where it doesn't make any sense for us to try to do any of the additional work? In other words, if we say, we're just gonna do invasive plant removal, which to me is sort of, sorry, Ron.
What you said, yeah.
To me, that's sort of a no-brainer. We ought to go ahead and do that. How much, I don't know. But, and then it looked like some of the trees they were suggesting we would drop are going to fall anyway at some stage of the game. And you wonder if we shouldn't strategically think about doing that too. But if you put off doing the other things, is there a point of no return? What I'm saying in terms of notching the dam or building it up or any of that kind of nature.
And I think we'd have to have more conversations with them about that. I would think that I would think that we could do the notching the dam and adding the movable gates at any point unless it's completely filtered in.
Well,
And I think that's going to take a number of.
I never saw a time frame on which they thought it was going to turn silted so much that it was going to be wetlands, and there's nothing we could do besides spending $2 to $3 million to
And
hedge it, which we
that's
never
something-
do. I mean, that makes
Right.
no physical sense in my opinion.
Now, they did say that if we notch the dam and, have the movable gates, it'll lower the water initially and will make that transition more quickly.
Let me ask you this, why would you want that?
Well, it's ultimately going to fill in at some point. It would.
Why would you want to spend money to make it happen faster?
No, I think that's a great
Right.
observation.
And I think their comments were that if we took an active approach, we would have the ability to selectively plant native species that would provide the best habitat. We might be able to do that anyway. So I do think, we need to have more discussion and get some timeline data.
Yeah, and on this notching the dam proposal, how much money did they estimate for that? Do you have that? As I recall, it got up to 100,000 very quickly.
Yes, Yes, that was, yeah, okay, it says the conceptual level cost of the dam redesign and construction, along with on-site harvest and placement of habitat logs, is estimated at approximately 50,000 to 100,000.
Linda, would it be useful to have someone from the company come in and explain all this in greater detail?
And I think that would be helpful. I asked Lee if he was available to do that, and he said absolutely. He would be happy to do that.
I
So
think
we
it would
would
be
have-
good to have, for us each to have the proposal in front of us, which I regret that I didn't print that out, today, but to have it so that we can look at it and discuss it with him and ask whatever pertinent questions we might have.
Right.
Because it's, I feel like we just don't have enough
Detail.
sense of it right now.
Okay. And I'm thinking that we might want to have a special meeting to do that instead of just waiting for our monthly meeting, because we might want to have dedicated time that we
Just for
spend
that.
just for that.
Does Lee know whether there's any grants available to create wetlands? Because
Yes.
I'm with the mayor, I don't see us spending money to create wetlands, whereas maybe there's some environmental benefit to doing that, but I don't see us spending municipal funds to do that.
This gets back to the idea of having Mr. Droppelman come in and talk to us, because I'm with you. As I understand it, pond is going to turn into a wetland all on its own one of these days. Because whether it's 5 years from now or when, why should we spend money to hurry that up? Maybe there's a reason, but I don't know what it is. In addition, I really don't see myself, this or perhaps any city council appropriating this kind of money to do this.
And I think that that's, getting back
I
to.
mean, this is the second cheapest option they've given us, and it's 50 to 100 grand, and it goes up from there.
Well, actually, the second option, well, the invasive plant removal is the cheapest option and don't
Yeah.
do anything else. And then the second one is 10 to 20,000, and then it goes up from there. But I do think that would be helpful to have Lee, and also investigate some of the funding. Because I think there are some granting organizations that provide funding for this. I'm sure they're very competitive. And we just have to find out what the timeline is for them. We also, the thing that's always in the back of my mind is that anything we do with this property, actively do with the property, we do need to notify the Kentucky Heritage Land Conservation Fund, because we do have a conservation easement on the property. I can guarantee that if the only thing we're doing is removing invasive plants, they would be very, very pleased that we are doing that. And they sort of told me that they would pretty much go along with a recommendation that we have, as long as we're paying for it or find other money for it, because they have money for this sort of project, but nothing's available right now, because they basically, first choice is for them to acquire more property that can be placed under conservation.
Linda, could more desirable plantings be included, along with the removal of the invasives? Is
For
that
the
an
price.
option? Well, yeah, but I mean, could that work within a reasonable budget? Do you know? or-
I think that's another question for Lee, is what that would take,
Mhm.
because I have no sense of quantity, cost per plant,
Right.
seeding versus plugs or,
Mhm.
Is this the first time that there's been invasive plant removal?
we had about, I'm sort of making this up now, but I would say it was probably 8 to 10 years ago. This same company did a 2-day demonstration project one day in Harrods Creek Park near the Montero Trailhead. And the other was some of the area around Putney Pond. And at the time, we just did not have funding available to pay them. So they did 2 days for free. And, but that was a long time ago, and there's been no real systematic ongoing maintenance of that because it's just really hard to do a lot of that work relying on volunteers often. So,
Sometimes the county extensions have projects like the College of Agriculture, University of Kentucky. It's called Civic Engagement and Service Learning. Sometimes those can be student internships where they come in and do that as part of their learning process.
right.
And it doesn't cost anything. It's just part of their learning process and they do research projects on it. That's might be worthy of a phone call to see
Sure.
if they're interested.
Okay, so I think where we're leaving this now is that I need to communicate with Lee and try to come up with a time that he's available and could meet with us.
Yeah.
So I don't know if anyone has any thoughts about days and times, daytime, evening.
We should get some several dates from him and then circulate them.
Okay,
Let's go from there.
we can do that. All right. Scout update, anything new, Lynn?
Well, we're now meeting again, so we've had 2 meetings. We went to summer camp last week, that's good too. And so that means advancement will pick back up, and when kids have advancement, and they reach the top and they want to become Eagles, and that's when they come see us, so. To get some more candidates, maybe wait on the summer, early fall, but we are starting to meet again.
Great. And hopefully we've got some projects we really want Eagle Scouts to work on, so I'm hoping that we'll get some things done. So. I don't really have any additional things to talk about. I'll open it up to anyone that has other business they would like to discuss. I don't.
Yeah, I'd like to hear what those projects might be.
Oh, there's another spot along the Blue Trail. We had scouts did, I don't know how many feet of gravel.
150, 60, quite a bit.
And there's another spot along that trail that when we have a lot of rain gets very muddy. And we would like scouts to gravel another portion of that trail.
It looks good where they did it already.
And it really has worked well. And actually, I think we might benefit from doing a similar thing. If you go from the parking lot at Harrods Creek Park, near where the information kiosk is, if you take that trail up to the Blue Trail, it's pretty washed out. And I've been thinking that maybe a little gravel there would be a help. And the other place that I think would be helpful would be there's about halfway down the Orange Trail, there's a trail that you can go up to the Blue Trail, and that's where on the Blue Trail, they did the gravel. Even that little cut through trail, I think, would benefit from some of that. We had some other projects. I'm trying to remember what
I think it was a request for a library box we got. There's several things out there.
Yeah.
So,
if the playground gets built, it'd be nice to have another information kiosk by City Hall. So
yeah.
when?
Linda, do you know if Ron has had a chance to purchase the hardware for the Bluebird?
Ron's been on vacation, so I suspect
that's
not,
right.
but maybe Ron can chime in on that.
But the clock is ticking, right? So,
That will be done this week.
yay,
Great.
thank you.
And I don't know if you've been in touch with
Phil,
Phil.
I have not, he had his son's wedding, and since he volunteered to build 9 boxes, I didn't want to call him and say, well, are you done? Yeah. Are we almost there? But, I think once we get the hardware and all, that would be an appropriate time to call him and let him know we have our part done, and just let him know we're having a Parks Committee meeting and wanted to give him a give a report where we are. So
Sure.
I'll follow up when I feel like it's a good time for that.
That sounds good. The other thing, Sally cleaned out all of the information kiosks. Thank you, Sally. And we put up some new maps in there. Now that Rod's back from vacation, I'll add another little thing on his to-do list, or maybe he's already printed them out. We talked about printing out the new bird brochure that we could post in the kiosks. So that's something that we'll do as time permits. Anything else that anyone has to add?
Linda?
Yeah.
Let me turn it
Yes,
down.
Harry.
Sorry, I'm talking on my phone because speaker's on so I can see you guys. But I don't know if Ron, sorry, give me just a second. Turn that volume down and that volume up. Is that better?
Yeah, you're good.
Good.
April 20th, we got a call from Prospect Police to go down to Putney's Pond for a crane that needed to be rescued. I don't know if Ron told you about that. I was not at the last meeting. That was hilarious.
It was.
I couldn't understand.
I have some fun. I thought a crane had fallen into the water, and it's not a construction crane. It was the crane.
Oh,
Yeah, some people were out there fishing and saw a crane that kept trying to take off and could not get more than a foot off the water and would crash right back into it. So after about an hour, they called for us, and we took our little fireboat out there. Had to take the engine off of it because it was so heavy to launch. There's no place to launch down there. It was kind of gross, but they paddled all the way out there. They got a foot away from the bird, and he just took off. Gone.
It's good
But
training, good training.
Yeah, absolutely. So I just thought it was a funny story to share. I was not here last month. We met a real person after that somewhere else. So it was good training, absolutely.
We can use more funny stories.
that's great.
Yeah, it was funny because me and Jeff were standing on the dam watching it. And I looked at Jeff and I said, you watch, they're going to get all the way out there and that bird's going to take off. And sure as heck.
That's great.
I think
So
a turtle had something.
So I think the other item of business is to set our next meeting day and time. And looking at the city calendar, I'm wondering if we could meet on Monday, June 12th at 5 o'clock. That would be 1 week before the city council meeting. July, I'm sorry, July. Can't read. I can't read my own writing. July.
What date?
It's July 12th. That would be a Monday, a week before the city council meeting. And 5 o'clock, I will say that we will be meeting in person only in July. So if you would like to participate in the meeting, you need to be here.
I'll be on vacation, but it's no problem. It's
Okay.
catch up.
It works for me.
Okay, great.
I'm happy to say we are about done with the WebEx meetings.
That sounds great. Thank you all for your time, and I will be in touch after I talk to Lee, and we can talk about dates and times for him to discuss the report with us. Thank you.
That's good. Thanks, Lynn.
Thank you.
We're good.
Buttons on.
It's not- Very tough. It should.
Good.